Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 72, which is called Mitsuki's Will. And yeah, I continue to really enjoy this arc. I think this episode was definitely more of a setup, but I like where the setup is going. I think we're going to get to a really nice crescendo for this arc, and there's going to be, I think, some big notable things that happen. This episode was mainly, I think, setting up Boruto and Sarada, like obviously going after Mitsuki. But I liked almost like every part of the episode in terms of how they set everything up, making it not quite public, but letting a lot more people know, or just people becoming aware of the fact that Mitsuki is Orochimaru's son. And the significance of, like, I suppose, the fact that it's sort of been kept hidden from some people, but I suppose the significance behind the fact that Naruto was willing to make, in a way, such a risky decision, and him sort of being called out for it here. And I think especially what I liked about this one was, for me, my favorite scene from the whole episode, I suppose, two follow-up scenes. It was Sarada initially talking about how they have to kind of wait, they have to see if there's any evidence, and, you know, just go about things the shinobi way. Take your emotions out of this. That's what it is to be a shinobi. And I loved Boruto just kind of calling her out in a way that, you know, him saying, for you, what is it to be a Hokage? Is it just to be the strongest shinobi that there is? Because, you know, I thought you of all people would have been someone to give Mitsuki the benefit of the doubt here. And it's Boruto basically pointing out that he said to her before that, you know, I'll back you up, I'll be your right-hand man, I'll support you in becoming Hokage. And he's basically saying here, based on that decision, that's not the sort of Hokage decision I would support. And it's so interesting because in the very same episode, we see Naruto, like Boruto and Naruto actually meet sort of eye to eye on this issue, even though they themselves haven't discussed it with each other so far, but that they're basically on the same page with this one. Naruto is calmly trying to, I suppose, defend his decision to make Mitsuki a shinobi of the Leaf Village, even though Tsunade and the two elder advisors, and I suppose they're sort of hinting, setting up that Konohamaru will have a huge issue with this because with all of these characters who seem to oppose it within the Leaf Village that we saw, they're all people who were close to Hiruzen and Sarutobi. Now, I believe the two elders were directly Sarutobi's peers. They were from his generation and they knew each other, and they're basically equivalent ages. Tsunade obviously became the fourth Hokage because Hiruzen was killed by Orochimaru. Obviously, Minato was in the middle, but then, you know, the third Hokage came back, so 5 ends up following 3. But there's that connection, and she knew him, and then, of course, Konohamaru and Hiruzen are related. So there's that connection of, like, in a way, they see it as, like, Naruto made some sort of decision that benefited Orochimaru, where he's just trying to point out the fact that, you know, I made this decision to allow him to be in the village, because he kind of respecting him as a shinobi, not based on who his lineage is and so on, but purely based on, you know, what he saw of Mitsuki as a person up to then, and the skills that he, you know, could demonstrate. I suppose that will be delved into a little bit more, but I really liked Naruto just standing his ground to Tsunade, who, when she gets, you know, upset about something, in the past Naruto would maybe have a tendency to back down, or else get kind of just as maybe angry or kind of emotional aggressive. But him just kind of calmly stating his opinion of just like, you don't know Mitsuki, I do. Because, again, you remember, like, a bunch of episodes ago, we had that scene where, like, Boruto brought Mitsuki home, and they kind of had dinner, and, like, Naruto was there. And it was just this nice moment where, like, you could clearly tell that Naruto was just sort of analyzing, like, Mitsuki interacting with everyone, and was sort of happy with the way it ended up going, that, oh, like, Boruto gets on well with Mitsuki. He's turning out quite well, even though Mitsuki's a bit of an odd character. So I like Naruto. I wouldn't say full on going full defensive, but not backing down from a decision that he made. And I hope that gets kind of fleshed out about the reasoning behind that. And I'd like to see him get the moment of like him defending Mitsuki like in front of Boruto, and then realizing that they both meet eye to eye on this. Because the other angle on this is, of course, that Sarada more or less wants to become Hokage because she sort of idolizes Naruto. She looks up to Naruto and the type of character that he is, and that's the type of person that she wants to be. And what sort of characterizes Naruto as Hokage is, I suppose, the fact that specifically who he is and the type of decisions that he makes, the way he goes about things, was so different than the way it was before. That's why I think it was sort of very interesting to bring those two elders back into play, because they so represent the old way of doing things. Like, to bring up like a character like Granny Chiho, who I believe is meant to be from roughly the same generation, different village, but you know, the same era where the nations were completely like separate. They all remember war with the other nations, and you can still see that sort of old way of the shinobi, of like constant wars and a lack of trust, I suppose, between each other. And Naruto more represents that trust with the whole idea of like he'll put anything on the line for his friends, and that was the whole significance of the original Naruto and what he did for Sasuke. And now we're getting, I suppose, I think it's kind of unfair to say equivalent, just because the entirety of Naruto, kind of Shippuden and most of original Naruto, was about this, whereas I don't think this is going to be that much, but a similar type of arc where we're going to see Boruto put himself on the line for someone he considers to be his friend. This time out of more of a situation of Boruto also feeling a little bit like, I haven't been the best friend to Mitsuki because I haven't been listening to him as much, and I'm shocked with how little I actually know about the guy. Even though he sort of idolizes me, I need to kind of give him the respect and get to know him just as well as he kind of knows me. And there's a sense of that, but also that it's not just that they have no connection. Mitsuki and Boruto get on well, and there is a connection there. It's just, it was a little bit one-sided before, and Boruto kind of wants to make amends for that. And I think we're going to get to a point where Boruto is able to do something and in front of Mitsuki really show him that I'm coming for you. And Mitsuki has seen, and I suppose what's proven to Mitsuki before that Boruto is his son, S-U-N, is Boruto kind of doing this for other characters. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how Mitsuki reacts to I suppose, Boruto doing the Boruto thing towards him. Mitsuki being the one where Boruto is kind of, you know, putting himself on the line for, and how he feels about that. Does that relate to Mitsuki's will and him trying to find what that is? In that here is, in a way, like Boruto challenging the person who he kind of like defines himself by. And if Boruto passes this challenge, it will sort of be a proof in a way of that. But we'll have to wait to get there, because Mitsuki himself wasn't a real focus of this episode in terms of like directly what he's doing. We'll get there. This was more about the setup. This was more about Boruto, Sarada, and some other characters finding out about details about Mitsuki and setting up where we're going. So I liked, again, Sarada, you know, being the one waiting at the wall, basically, to head out. And her, in a way, this is her chance to sort of prove herself, that she kind of realizes that, yeah, Boruto is right. If I want to become Hokage, I can't just make every decision based off the shinobi code and the way we usually go about things. This isn't the way Naruto would do things. And in a way, it's not the way most of the Hokage would. All of them, to some degree, were rebels to a degree. Like Hashirama, of course, is actually like somewhat similar to Naruto. I think he was more, at least based on Naruto as he's older, of course, feels very like confident and mature, even though he's still a Naruto. So this current Naruto feels, you know, kind of very similar to Hashirama, Senju. Tobirama was, I suppose, much more of the straight-laced one, but, you know, just the fairness that he showed with like handling the Uchiha thing was good. Hiruzen was, again, like a little bit more kind of strict, but at the same time, just the warmness that he showed to certain characters, you could tell that he was still a Leaf Village shinobi who are obviously characterized by being much more kind of understanding and so on. Minato, of course, we know him. And it's even Tsunade was one who was willing to make those kind of tough decisions and like disagree with the elders and make the decisions that were needed, that she felt were needed. And I suppose in a way this is trying to build that aspect of Sarada, where she's a little bit, she's a bit of a goody two-shoes, following all of the rules and kind of being excellent without ever like super standing out as much as maybe she should. And this is about trying to find her edge to a degree, of her breaking the rules here to support Mitsuki and prove that, like, no, as Hokage, I would actually stand up for someone like this in that position, like Naruto's actually doing behind the scenes. So I think on all accounts, a lot of the character setup here is being done exceptionally well. I hope they can keep the consistency of this arc up, and that they have the reveals, they get the final scenes of this arc done well enough, and it doesn't end up a little bit like the Chocho arc did, where it was all set up to be pretty good, but then when it really came down to it, the sort of reveals, the character understandings were all just a little on the weak side. So I hope they have that sorted for when they get to it. The big scenes like Boruto and Mitsuki meeting again, and what conversation they have, what turns Mitsuki around, what is Mitsuki's will, that they have a good explanation and good writing behind that. Next episode looks like it's set to be kind of Orochimaru focused. It seems like Boruto and Sarada are heading for Orochimaru's hideout. Of course, Sarada knows where it is from the arc of her kind of having the issues about who her parents are, but she knows where it is, so that makes sense. But it's going to be so interesting to see how Orochimaru kind of reacts to them showing up and basically asking questions about Orochimaru's son, in that there must be some sense when we get to that scene of him being like, this is such an interesting situation that these two have come to me for like information to try and help Mitsuki, and like him being the villain for most of the series, the fact that like they're coming in a way to help his son, like there's I think there's something significant there. I don't know if they'll really go into it all that much, or if they'll just play him up the way he kind of has been played up, of like, I get why Mitsuki's doing this. He'll maybe give them maybe one little piece of information about Mitsuki and kind of send them on their way to figure it out themselves. But I hope there's something there that he notes, even just to himself, a little bit of inner dialogue about like how unique and interesting it is that, like, in a way, like Sasuke and Naruto are the ones who kind of like were, opposed him. Sasuke, of course, used to be his like apprentice, basically. Naruto always opposed him. How their children are now kind of coming to him for advice about how to help his son about this situation. I hope they play up just the odd nature of that conversation. It looks like Konohamaru is going to get a little bit of a focus here, which I completely understand. I wonder, will his opinion on Mitsuki sort of change because of this reveal? I get the feeling that they're going to go down the road of, I think, really calling out some of the older characters who more remember the old way between the nations, and not the new era where they have to make these decisions that, even though there may be like, wow, that doesn't seem like the best decision, you're letting someone kind of get away scot-free, but it represents the world at peace, that you have to make some decisions of kind of giving people some leeway. So Orochimaru not in prison, but being kind of under constant surveillance, but being allowed a level of freedom. His son being allowed to live a normal life to a degree. And I'd love for them to just kind of point out the fact of like, are you really like accusing Mitsuki of every single crime that Orochimaru committed? That just because he's related to Orochimaru, that he is at fault for just as much stuff, and so on. I think that is very, very interesting, and I'd like for them to sort of point that out, and that, like, yes, Naruto, you can perhaps criticize for making some of those decisions, that, like, shouldn't Sasuke be in prison for what he did, but, you know, the sort of goodwill that Naruto built up over the series, you know, he earned that sort of a thing where they'll let him away with that because he did all of this for Sasuke. The war would only be ended, you know, the war would still be going on if it wasn't for Naruto kind of bringing Sasuke back and everything that he did for him. So to have, you know, Sasuke just be locked away even though he clearly changed, you know, it would have been this really negative thing that would have represented the old world. And that's why, of course, Sasuke, in a way, sort of isolates himself from the village to, I think, you know, make up for that to everyone else in a way. So, and I think it's similar with the Orochimaru thing of, like, you know, this will be a net benefit, because they do point out in the middle of the episode that they're basically, I think, more or less setting up that at some point it will happen. Otsutsuki clan versus the ninja world is like this thing that is coming, that we'll get to see, like, the heads of the clan and so on at some point, and that Orochimaru's research is going to be so important in terms of being in any way able to battle them. And that's why they're, like, allowing him to perform this research, because it will be important. Like, Orochimaru ended up being somewhat important come the finale of original Naruto Shippuden. You know, there's an importance to him because of how intelligent he is. So it's similarly with, like, someone like Kabuto, where, like, he's allowed to be run that orphanage because the situation that he's in, like, it's so clear that he changed, and yes, he did all this bad stuff, but he's so willing to repent. Why not use him in this way? And yes, some of the decisions are sort of hard to understand just because of how bad the villains were in some of these situations, but again, it's a lot of the older characters advocating just, oh, lock them away in prison, and all that really does is harbor more hatred, which is kind of what Naruto has tried to get out of the shinobi world, of, like, everything being about that cycle of hatred of, like, we kill this guy because he's a villain, the people who cared about him come after us, and it's just this cycle of revenge that causes all the issues in the shinobi world. Whereas at this point in time, there's peace between the nations, and even though this is more of a Leaf Village specific thing, they still have to take that approach with their people. So I think this episode actually dealt with some very complex kind of issues around some of the decision making in terms of Naruto. Like, he's the hero character, of course. Like, as the audience, we by default almost agree with everything he does. And I like them kind of pointing out that a lot of people actually don't like that decision, but within the overall themes of Naruto and what the show has kind of been about, what it's been about trying to resolve in this world, he's made the right decision, and the significance of giving Mitsuki that same second chance. And right now it's seeming like Sarada and Boruto and Naruto are, like, the only ones that are willing to put themselves on the line for him, is very, very interesting to me. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. Did you like it as much as I did? What were your thoughts on what I had to say about it? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.